Welcome to Roles and Responsibilities within the Federal Aid Process Training module of the Local Public Agencies Certification Training. The Federal Aid Program is a complex process and requires input and support from various entities. These entities include Federal Highway Administration or FHWA, Caltrans, and local public agencies. In addition, the Metropolitan Planning Organizations, Regional Transportation Planning Agencies, County Transportation Commissions and the California Transportation Commission or CTC have roles in the federal aid process. FHWA has the authority and responsibility for implementing and monitoring federal laws, regulations, and executive orders affecting federal programs. FHWA delegates authority and responsibilities to Caltrans according to the Stewardship and Oversight Agreement. The FHWA Caltrans Stewardship and Oversight Agreement defines roles and responsibilities, outlines authorities, and assures accountability in effectively and efficiently managing program and project delivery of the federal aid program. Caltrans is responsible and accountable to FHWA for administering the implementation of the federal aid programs and projects in accordance with laws, regulations, and policies that govern the federal aid program. Caltrans establishes uniform policy and procedures to assist local public agencies in meeting the program requirements for implementing their projects. Caltrans, in collaboration with FHWA, interprets federal and state laws, rules and regulations, and provides guidance in the form of manuals and training to assist the local public agencies in planning, constructing, and maintaining their transportation system. Each specific local assistance program provides funding which requires distribution, management, and oversight control to ensure that the funds are expended in accordance with the program requirements and that allocations and budget authority are not exceeded. Caltrans distributes fund allocations to the Metropolitan Planning Organizations, Regional Transportation Planning Agencies, cities, counties, and others as specified by law. Once the distributions are established, Caltrans provides program guidance for their expenditure. Some programs may require annual or periodic project application and selection to establish eligibility lists. Caltrans also monitors project implementation to ensure that the projects are implemented in a timely manner to achieve program goals. Some major federal aid steps delegated by FHWA to Caltrans cannot be further delegated to the local public agency level and remain Caltrans' responsibility. Caltrans ensures projects are included in the Federal Statewide Transportation Improvement Program and Federal Transportation Improvement Program. In this training we will call both TIP. Local public agencies have the primary responsibility for implementing the specific projects which carry out the federal aid programs. The local public agency is responsible for the conception, planning, programming, environmental investigations, design, right-of-way, construction, and maintenance of the projects on their local transportation system. The local public agency must ensure that its staff members, consultants, and contractors comply with the applicable state and federal laws, regulations and procedures in developing and constructing its projects. The local public agency's project team must include the following key positions: person in responsible charge, project engineer, invoicing staff, environmental staff, Title VI coordinator, American with Disabilities Act coordinator, Disadvantaged Business Enterprises liaison officer, right-of-way staff, contract administrator, construction manager or resident engineer. Federal regulations require the local public agencies to designate a full-time public employee, not a contractor or consultant, in responsible charge for each project. The role of the responsible charge is to ensure that the work delivered under contract is complete, accurate, and consistent with the terms, conditions, and specifications of the contract. The responsible charge must be employed directly by the local public agency directly receiving federal funds. A consultant cannot be designated as the responsible charge of a project. The responsibilities of the responsible charge may be shared among a number of public employees. A public employee may be the responsible charge of several projects. The regulations are silent about engineering credentials, thus the public local agency's employee in responsible charge need not be an engineer. The project engineer may be either a local public agency employee or consultant retained by the local public agency. The project engineer must be a professional engineer registered to practice in California. Depending on the type of work, the project engineer typically is a licensed civil engineer, electrical engineer, or landscape architect. The project engineer will certify the local public agency's plans, specification and estimate packages have been designed and prepared in accordance with Caltrans Local Assistance Procedures Manual, and any necessary design decisions have been approved by the Public Works Director or his/her designee. The public local agency must designate a qualified staff to prepare, certify, and track invoices to be submitted to Caltrans for reimbursement. The local public agency invoicing staff must be familiar with federal funding process through Caltrans Local Assistance Office, particularly invoicing procedures described in Chapter 5, Invoicing, of the Caltrans Local Assistance Procedures Manual. The local public agency invoicing staff must be familiar with federal funding process through Caltrans Local Assistance Office, particularly invoicing procedures described in Chapter 5, Invoicing, of the Caltrans Local Assistance Procedures Manual. The local public agency shall designate qualified staff or retain consultants to perform the technical work and subsequent review, and certify that all the National Environmental Policy Act and the California Environmental Quality Act requirements have been met. The local public agency environmental staff or consultants shall meet minimum experience and training requirements set forth in Chapter 6, Environmental Procedures, of the Caltrans Local Assistance Procedures Manual. The local public agency must designate a Title VI, Civil Rights Act of 1964, coordinator to ensure that no person shall, on the ground of race, color, and national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subject to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. The Title VI coordinator must have easy access to the head of the agency and be publicly identified. Any local public agency that employs 50 or more persons is required to designate an American with Disabilities Act coordinator, who is responsible for coordinating the efforts of the local public agency to comply with American with Disabilities Act requirements, including investigation of complaints. The local public agency must make available to the public the name and contact information including mailing address, telephone number, email address, etc. of its designated American with Disabilities Act coordinator per 28 CFR 35.107a. Local public agency recipients of federal financial assistance must comply with all the elements of 49 CFR 26 entitled Participation by Disadvantaged Business Enterprises in Department of Transportation financial assistance programs. These provisions apply to all federal aid transportation projects. The local public agency must designate a disadvantaged business enterprises liaison officer, accountable to the chief executive officer of the local public agency, to administer the Caltrans Disadvantaged Business Enterprises program as it pertains to local public agencies. The local public agency shall designate qualified staff or retain consultants to perform right-of-way technical work and subsequent review, and certify that all Uniform Relocation Act requirements have been met. The local public agency's right-of-way staff or consultants must obtain qualification certification from Caltrans District Right-of-Way Coordinator in advance of performing and right-of-way activities. The local public agency's contract administrator is responsible for ensuring the quality of consultant products and services. The contract administrator is appointed as soon as the need for consultant services is identified. The local public agency's contract administrator is involved throughout the development of the selection process and the contract provisions, and in the administration of the consultant's work. The contract administrator must be a qualified local public agency's employee or have staff that is qualified to ensure the consultant's work is complete, accurate, and consistent with the terms and conditions of the consultant contract. On federal aid contracts, the contract administrator or staff members must be a full-time employee and familiar with the work to be contracted out and the standards to be used. The contract administrator must also abide by the laws, regulations, and policies required as part of accepting federal or state funding for their projects. Non-compliance with the laws, regulations, and policies may result in loss of project funding. The local public agencies must designate a qualified engineer who is empowered to administer the construction contract, known as the resident engineer. For projects off the state highway system, the resident engineer is not required to be a licensed professional engineer. However, if not licensed, the resident engineer must be working under the supervision of a licensed professional engineer. The local public agencies must furnish sufficient qualified support staff to assist the resident engineer in, but not limited to, construction surveys, soils and foundation tests, measurement and computation of quantities, testing of construction materials, checking shop drawings, and preparation of progress payments and reports. Additional resident engineer responsibilities include the preparation of change orders, as-built drawings, uniform filing of contract documentation, contract time tracking, labor compliance, disadvantaged business enterprises compliance, and other inspection and staff services necessary to assure that the construction contract administration is being performed in accordance with the project plans and specifications, state and federal laws, and with the Local Assistance Procedures Manual. For projects with structures, a structures representative may be necessary. The structure representative would be specifically responsible for the construction of the structure elements of the project. The local public agencies may employ a consultant to provide construction engineering services such as resident engineer, inspector, lab tester, or surveyor. Programming and funding agencies include California Transportation Commission or CTC, Metropolitan Planning Organizations, Regional Transportation Planning Agencies, and County Transportation Commissions. These organizations have broad transportation planning duties and responsibility for programming most projects using federal aid or state allocations from the various programs. The local public agencies must work closely with these organizations to ensure that its projects are placed in the appropriate transportation improvement program with the correct funds in the proper fiscal years. Federal funds and many state funds cannot be obtained without this programming step. The California Transportation Commission or CTC has programming and fund allocation responsibility for some federal aid and state-funded programs used for local assistance projects. It is the local public agency's responsibility to submit a request for allocation on time per the CTC preparation schedule. When a project is ready for implementation, the CTC must vote to allocate funding to the project. Now you have completed the roles and responsibilities within the Federal Aid Process Training module. Please click Next to complete the quiz for this module. Let's review what we just learned. Question number 1. What document defines the roles and responsibilities of FHWA and Caltrans in effectively managing program and project delivery of the Federal Aid Highway Program? Answer A. Caltrans Local Assistance Manual. Answer B. Stewardship and Oversight Agreement. Answer C. FHWA Manual on Uniform Agreements. Correct answer, B. Stewardship and Oversight Agreement. Question number 2. Can the responsible charge be a consultant? Answer A. Yes. Answer B. No. Correct answer, B. No, the responsible charge must be a full-time local public agency's staff. Now you have passed the roles and responsibilities within the Federal Aid Process Training module. Please click on Main menu to choose the next module you need to complete depending on your role at your local public agency.